Hi folks, this is Jeff Kissel, the controls engineer at the LIGO Hanford Observatory, here to give you an update on the run that we've been observing for the past 6 months. So I have here a visual aid to help you walk through the numbers with me so we can compare and contrast how we've been doing over the past 3 years of this advanced LIGO era. So I have this table here with me, and on this table the columns are the previous observing runs compared against the current observing run, and then on the rows we have metrics of success. So in 01 we broke ground and detected the first 3 gravitational wave events. That seemed pretty impressive. And then 02 came around, the second observing run, and we detected 8 events. However, in the first 6 months of this third observing run, we have already detected 33 events, an incredible amount. Even we were surprised at how much we've had so far. But let's explain why we've had so many more detections in this third observing run so far. So here, the second metric is the detector range. It's the range out into the universe that we can measure a token gravitational wave from 2 binary neutron stars with a signal-to-noise ratio of 8. It's just an arbitrary waveform that we've picked a long time ago to let us know how far out into the universe we can see. In the first observing run, roughly, with our best detector in the network, we were able to see about 200 million light years out into the universe. In the second observing run, we were able to increase that by about 50% and up to 300 million light years away. But now, in this third observing run, we've made so many improvements that we can now see a little bit more than double the range out into the universe that we can see in this unit of million light years. In terms of the jargon units that we typically use here at LIGO, these are 70, 90, and 135 megaparsecs. So 1 million parsecs, and remember a parsec is 3.26 light years. The reason why we quote this detector range is because we are interested in the amount of stuff exploding in the universe, and that is proportional to the volume that we are observing. Remember that volume is 4/3 pi r cubed for a sphere. So how long have we been observing these increasing amounts of volume? We have been observing in 01, we took data for 16 weeks at a duty cycle, or the fraction of uptime, at about 60%. And for 02, we took data for a longer duration and still had about the same duty cycle. In 03A, we've only been observing for 26 weeks, but our duty cycle has improved due to upgrades to the instrument, so we're now at 70 or 75%. And that means the amount of space-time that we have observed comparatively between 01, 02, and this first part of 03 has increased from 150 to 300 to now 1,500, and I'm going to use these funny units, megaparsecs cubed per kilo years. So that's the amount of volume we've observed over 1,000 years. It's really an incredible amount and an incredible increase in the space-time that we've been able to observe, which results in the increase of number of events that we've been able to observe. So that covers the astrophysical summary of what we've been doing since the last time we updated you. But now, the reason why we recap is because we're about to take a short break. This short break will last from tomorrow, October 1st, until November 1st, 2019. And over here, I have another visual aid to help you understand what we'll be doing to the system in order to improve the detector. So, the first thing is that we are going to improve both detectors. This is only the LIGO detectors that I'm talking about now. We are going to improve the efforts to reduce scattered light. what is scattered light. The optics in our interferometer, as hard as we try, are not perfect. They have speckles on them, either from particulate that has accumulated or built into the coatings. And that particulate or defects will scatter light, it will glint, it will speckle in all sorts of directions. Now, unfortunately, that glint and speckle, as it reflects light off of the optics, can hit things that are not nearly as well seismically isolated as the optics themselves. Now, what can reflect out can reflect back in, so that light that has now bounced off of a poorly seismically isolated object is now reflected back into the interferometer and starts to confuse the data. And so that reduces the sensitivity to the light that we do want to measure in the interferometer. So we're going to make several improvements in that system by adding a bunch of anti-reflective or absorptive materials around on those surfaces that are getting light reflected onto them. The next is that we have a very old, almost 20 plus years vacuum system that we are continually trying to maintain. And it's something that we are continually striving to make better, but also it decays over time. So at both observatories, we are going to be testing, repairing, improving, and making better this vacuum system that is so important to LIGO. Here at Hanford specifically, we are a little bit less sensitive than our Livingston counterpart, so we have a little bit of extra work to do in order to try and make us as good as our Livingston counterpart. So we're going to do two things. One, we will try to improve our duty cycle by installing wind fences at our 4-kilometer end stations. The Hanford Observatory has always had trouble with wind. It has gusts of wind up to 80 miles an hour, laminar flow winds around 40 miles an hour quite often. And this wind batters the buildings that the test masses live in, the mirrors at the end stations, and that building motion rotates the floor, and that floor rotation confuses the translation seismic isolation system, and through that it confuses the detector, and it makes us not as sensitive as we could be, as well as it sometimes moves the mirrors so much that we can't keep the cavities on resonance. So we're going to install a wind fence to break some of that wind before it hits the buildings to try and mitigate that problem. Lastly, we have a new system, a new auxiliary laser system in our detector called the squeezed light injection system. So this is an auxiliary laser that is sent into a nonlinear crystal, and that output from that nonlinear crystal is then sent into the interferometer. And this improves the sensitivity at high frequency, much like increased laser power would. However, this auxiliary injection system is decaying. It's new, we're still prototyping it, so there is some mysterious decay in the amount of light that gets from this laser into that nonlinear crystal, which is housed in vacuum. So we're going to be replacing the vacuum feed-through, hopefully to improve that laser injection system and therefore improve the squeezed light system. So that concludes this update of the 03 observing run. We will resume November 1st, 2019, and hopefully detect many more gravitational waves. Thank you.